This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening, happy Friday. Thank you for joining us. The Canadian Border Services Agency recently released a report that says 1 in 4 of its agents saw colleagues discriminate against travelers. Most often that discrimination was based on their race. We spoke to 2 Canadians who say this has been their experience coming back into Canada. CBC agreed to withhold their identities because they fear reprisal when they travel in the future. Our Joanne Roberts has the story.
I honestly don't even know what it feels like to truly have like a passionate belonging to the country that I'm from.
This 33-year-old woman was born in Canada. When she was younger, she was traveling with her mom, an immigrant from the Caribbean, and her boyfriend, an American citizen. They were coming back to Winnipeg so he could meet the rest of her family.
We were pulled over and brought in for questioning. We were assumed to be trafficking him.
She said border agents separated all of them and interrogated her, asking the same questions because they didn't believe her.
I mean, I was 17 and I had nothing else to say, but we were with each other because he's my boyfriend.
She says she's bothered less at the border because she changes her entire demeanor to stay calm, no matter what border agents say or do.
And it feels like everyone else is allowed to have normal human reactions, but we're not.
Alistair Clark is an immigration lawyer. He's had clients contact him with stories of potential racism at the border. He's not surprised with the results of the CBSA's report.
You know, I recently spoke with a good friend of mine who is a CBSA officer, and he kind of expressed to me similar thoughts of officers that he works with.
He understands border agents have a difficult role in protecting Canada's national security, but they need to balance the need to investigate with treating people with respect.
I call Canada my home.
This 53-year-old woman came from Sri Lanka to Winnipeg in 2008. She says she's afraid of making mistakes at the border and being unable to come back to the country, even though she's a Canadian citizen.
Like paper says you belong here, but still you don't give that feel. Person you're dealing with, that person is not giving you that feeling for you.
She's had family from Sri Lanka with visitor visas staying with her for the past year. They went on a quick trip to the States, and when they arrived at the Canadian border to head back home, she misunderstood what the border agent was asking her. When he asked where they came from, she said they traveled from Winnipeg.
He snapped at me saying, like, you lied to me, you said you came from Winnipeg, but those 2 people are not from Winnipeg, they're from Sri Lanka. So I said, well, so I thought like they lived here for a year, so I don't remember to tell that they're initially, because passport says already they're Sri Lanka.
She says she felt humiliated and ashamed by the border agent. Her family was scared they wouldn't be able to re-enter Canada.
So when somebody says like that, you lied and all, then it's more hurtful.
A spokesperson for the CBSA said it condemns all forms of racism and discrimination. It's developed initiatives to make the CBSA a more inclusive, respectful, and diverse place. It will investigate all allegations of inappropriate behavior and take the necessary actions from discipline to termination. Joanne Roberts, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg police say they have received a lot of calls since our story yesterday about a young man whose remains have not yet been identified. This young man was in his late teens or early 20s. He died in August after paramedics took him to hospital in medical distress. CBC's Emily Brass has more.
Police hope one of the many tips they've received over the past 24 hours will lead them to this person's loved ones so they can take part in his funeral. Also looking into his identity is the First Nations family advocate. Cora Morgan says she can't believe there isn't anyone out there who knows who he is.
Our First Nations community, we have these networks and we can know who people are related to and know how we are connected to them in some way or another. And usually it doesn't take much time to be able to figure those things out. So this is a kind of a real mystery.
Morgan says some staff are even looking for him on their own time over social media. She worries he may have aged out of the child welfare system and had nowhere to go, something she says happens in Winnipeg all the time. Right now, the young man's body is being held at a funeral home, but if he isn't identified in time, he may end up here at the Brookside Cemetery. In Manitoba, about 150 people's remains go unclaimed every year. After 4 weeks, a ceremony is held for them. In the meantime, coroners check missing persons records, fingerprints, and dental x-rays. They also look for signs of surgeries or medical implants, which can have serial numbers. And as a last resort, they'll test DNA. In some cases, investigators contact hereditary DNA companies to see if a relative is on file. The chief medical examiner says the province hasn't had a case where that's been done yet, since it's quite rare that someone can't be identified. The First Nations family advocate says if a loved one doesn't turn up, they will be there. They'll help plan a funeral and make sure that Indigenous traditions are observed.
It's just sad, and I struggle with the lack of dignity that he's been afforded, the lack of caring and support, and I don't know. I think it's most people's biggest fear to die alone.
Chief Medical Examiner Dr. John Eunice says a lot of people live nomadic lives and don't always check in. He says friends and relatives often end up looking for these people, even if it's years or months down the line. Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
5 of Winnipeg's mayoral candidates made promises today trying to win your vote. CBC's Bartley Kivas is covering the mayoral race, and he joins us now live from the newsroom. Bartley, first off, what did we hear from Glenn Murray today?
Janet, the former mayor unveiled an ambitious addictions treatment and mental health plan and suggested he'd spend 2 terms in office making it happen.
Standing alongside the leaders of 3 addictions recovery centers, Murray promised to expand addictions treatment programs and ensure community health centers operate around the clock.
I am going to beat this drum if I have to every week for 8 years until we've done this.
Murray revealed a personal connection to the mental health and addictions crisis.
I lost my son 3 years ago. He's 46 years old. He was on the streets here. At the same time, my mother was going into a mental health crisis, and it made the last few years of my life extremely difficult.
Murray also promised to restore provincial funding for community health organizations and provide more money to housing organizations. Housing and health are provincial responsibilities, so Murray said he'd work with other levels of government to find the money. He said it would take a year to determine the cost.
You're always going to ask me how we can afford this. My question is the reverse: how can we afford not to?
Bartley, who else did we hear from today?
Robert Falcon-Ouellette says he wants Winnipeg to be more child-friendly. Ouellette says he wants to extend library hours and make Winnipeg Transit free for youth aged 12 to 17. He couldn't cost out those promises, but he also pledged to spend $40 to $50 million building 2 indoor aquatic centers, with at least one on the north side of Winnipeg.
There has been a lot of talk around in our city about a lot of civic infrastructure going to the south end of the city, so it's really important that we have equitable access to all infrastructure across the city.
Rana Bakari, meanwhile, says she'd divert 10% of the $320 million police budget to social services.
We need community organizations on the ground who know the community, who are able to address community issues, specifically mental health, addictions issues, so we can get to the bottom of the roots of the crime.
Scott Gillingham promised today to make it easier for restaurants to add patios. Under his plan, approvals will be automatic if restaurateurs fill out an online form. Finally, Jenny Mockluck said she'd increase the frequency of Winnipeg Transit service, but she says she won't follow through on a city plan to expand rapid transit lines. So that's 5 out of 15 mayoral candidates. We'll find out how many actually wind up on the ballot on Wednesday when the ballot's set. Janet.
Thank you, Bartley. Bartley Kivas reporting live tonight. Winnipeg police are dealing with increasing demands for service, and at the same time, a new survey indicates public opinion of the police has fallen. CBC's Cameron McLean was at the police board meeting today, and he has the story.
Police are dealing with more emergency calls than ever. The number of calls that police consider to be life-threatening has increased 26% since last year. At the police board meeting today, Police Chief Danny Smythe called that alarming.
The demand for service is outstripping the resources that we have. I focused primarily on the PSAP, or the Public Safety Access Point today, but that has an impact on the street as well.
These emergency calls require more police resources and take officers away from less urgent matters. They are also putting incredible strain on people working in the 911 call center, known as PSAP. In the last 10 years, almost half of the staff has turned over. Almost a third quit within a year.
And what that means to me is that's a very stressful environment in there. People think they want to do that work, and then they get there and they realize this is not for me.
The police board also released the results of a new public opinion survey. The number of respondents that said police did an excellent or good job dropped from 64% in 2019 to 46%. The percentage of people who thought police responded promptly to calls also fell from 51% to 45%. Meanwhile, the number of people who thought police were overfunded rose from 9% to 19%. Police Board Chair Marcus Chambers says that puts the city in a tough position come budget time.
It all depends on citizen expectation. So if citizens want quicker response time or to have a police member there to dust for fingerprints and try to get that analysis done to see if it's part of a group, then yes, we're going to have to increase the resources to have that done.
Police also said they don't expect to meet the more than $9 million savings target the city has asked of them. Police say they'll only meet a third of that. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The provincial opposition says now is not the time to give a big bonus to the CEO of a Crown corporation. Manitoba Hydro CEO Jay Graywall was paid more than $500,000 in 2021. The NDP obtained a document that shows at a recent meeting, Hydro's board talked about her year-end compensation. NDP leader Wab Kinew says a bonus should be off the table while Manitobans struggle to make ends meet.
With inflation being what it is, with your life getting more expensive each and every day, I don't think anyone wants to see CEOs taking home big compensation packages, big bonuses. Least of all when we're talking about a company that is owned by the people of Manitoba.
Hydro says bonuses were built into Graywall's contract when she was hired in 2019. The incentives are based on the Crown Corporation reaching its annual goals. The owner of an historic building in downtown Winnipeg says he's angry and he's hurt. Rare century-old brass fixtures were stolen from the old Royal Bank building on Main Street this week. The plates were about 45 centimeters tall. They hung, as you can see there, on gates in front of the building's front doors. Bob Brown reported on Tuesday that they had been stolen. He says he's already been in contact with local scrapyards.
When I first saw it, I was devastated. I'm sort of getting over it now, and our company is going to be turning 100 years old in the next few years, and we're just hoping to be able to restore those gates.
Winnipeg police confirmed they received a report about the theft. Officers have since recovered some of the stolen pieces, but others are still missing. It is not always easy settling into a new community. Can be incredibly difficult, in fact. This week, a series of events took place in Winnipeg to help make newcomers feel welcome. The Canadian Muslim Women's Institute hosted Welcoming Week. It's an annual initiative meant to celebrate the diversity of our country and make it more inclusive. CBC's Marjorie Dowhouse dropped by one of the special events.
I'm here with Maria Rabadi with the Canadian Muslim Women's Institute in Winnipeg. Hi.
Hello, welcome.
Well, thank you for having us. And speaking of welcome, it's Welcoming Week, right? Tell us a little bit about what the week is all about.
So this week is a global event, and it's been there for 10 years, and it's the third year that Canada participates nationally. We, as Canadian Muslim Women Institute, as well as other settlement organizations, were invited by IRCC, the Government of Canada, to participate in this year's Welcoming Week, which takes place from September 9 to 18. The Welcoming Week is an opportunity to raise awareness about the important work that settlement organizations do to create welcoming communities where everyone can thrive, no matter where they come from or their backgrounds.
So tell us about what's happening this week. We're seeing pierogies being made here behind you. So what were some of the events, some of the things that were happening as part of Welcoming Week?
So we created a full week of events and a social media campaign to encourage people to try to make their communities more welcoming, as well as the events include the Pierogi Day, which is a fun day where women can come, or anyone can come and participate and learn how to cook pierogis recipes or give tips of how to actually cook it, or maybe a change of the way different cultures do it. We thought of it as a fun time for newcomers to mingle and share each other's culture.
Who's been coming to Welcoming Week?
Everyone. So for newcomers from everywhere, there are newcomers that have just arrived, like in the last 10, 15 days, and we have newcomers who've been here for a year or 2 or 3 months from everywhere. We, in Canadian Muslim Women Institute, we serve all newcomers, regardless of their background or where they come from. So it's been actually nice because it's an opportunity for us to serve more newcomers and let them know about our activities. So the moment they're here, we also give them a tour of what we offer so that they can take advantage of that as well.
And how long have you been here now?
2 months.
And what
I'm
do you
a newcomer.
and what do you think of Winnipeg?
You know, Winnipeg, it's like so close to me because a lot of people from Ukraine here. So I'm not feeling alone here. It's like my second home. This institute helps me a lot. You know, I'm attending a child care program because I'm educator, early childhood educator, and I taught a lot of information. Yeah, because the education system are different in our country, in this country. So I need this knowledge, and this institute helps me, you know, a lot.
The team, it's very good, and the chief, it's very good.
How have people been here with you?
I love him. It's very kindly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The good thing about this annual event that it is an opportunity to encourage other people to make our communities more inclusive, more welcoming. Because the more our communities are welcoming, the more newcomers feel at home.
Weather specialist Fiona Odlum joins us now, and I don't know about you, Fiona, but I am now hungry.
Oh, it is pierogi season. Bring on the carbs.
It is. And maybe the nice umbrellas, cute umbrellas time.
Yes, it is definitely umbrella weather. It's been that way all day. It's going to stay that way tonight. So if you are heading out to a pierogi party, take that umbrella. We are starting to see some of our numbers already starting to roll in for what we've seen today. So in L'Atelier, this is all from Coco Ross, this great community website. 45.1 millimeters already recorded, 38 in Rosa, 33.8 in Morris, 17.8 in Miami. Currently in Winnipeg, we're sitting at 12 degrees. Showers continuing throughout this supper hour, and it will continue into your midnight snack as well. If you're planning a bonfire, tonight is not your night. The chance of rain is incredibly high. Mosquito count, well, we're not going to be out there, and because of this beautiful rain, that wildfire danger is pretty non-existent. It's all because of this system right here, this low that has been pushing up from the States, a northwestern low. You can see it's quite heavy in areas, and this rain is going to stay with us in the south, and then it'll finally start moving out of Winnipeg. As it starts to move, we're going to still see a lot of cloud cover. So by lunchtime, we should be in the clear from those showers. So this is a long-standing storm. It's going to start moving north. It's going to bring a lot of rain to the Barons River area. And then as it starts to move up into the Churchill region, it gets a little bit more widespread and starts to lose a little bit of its steam. Don't worry, I haven't run out of steam. We got lots to talk about still. Here are some of the rainfall numbers we're looking for up until tomorrow night. So you can see Barons River lots. Now, just in the corner of your screen, you're going to see a little bit of Dryden. Watch this. They have a rainfall warning. We're going to look for 60 to 100 millimeters of rain. So if you're heading in that zone, do keep in mind that's a lot of rain coming your way. So 14 degrees at midnight. Those showers are going to continue. One of the things that's okay about this rain is the fact that it's not a sideways rain, and that's because the wind has been relatively quiet. So I don't mind a rain that just falls right down. The sideways, that's not my favorite. So we're going to wake up to showers tomorrow. As we get going towards lunchtime, we're going to see about a 40% chance of rain at lunch. So really by then, that's where we're going to start seeing things clearing and looking for 16 degrees. Looking for a daytime high tomorrow of only 17 degrees. So That is definitely cooler than seasonal. Seasonal for this time of year is a little bit closer to that 18, 19. So we're definitely in the pocket. So we're going to look for a pretty cloudy day for us on Sunday. We could have a couple of moments, peaks of sunshine. 22 degrees, so we're warming up a little bit. So if you kept your pool going, you're going to want to crank the heat up because that's still a bit chilly. So 11 degrees overnight. We are going to be watching for rain beginning on Monday, and it continues all the way through the week. So unfortunately, this is not great news for folks in the middle of harvest.
Weather Update is brought to you by Home Equip, your trusted local source for Pride Mobility scooters. From sales to rental and repair, our team is here to serve you.
The Winnipeg Jets will head into a new season without a team captain. Team management says after a disappointing season, it decided to restructure leadership. Instead of having one player wear the C on his sweater as captain, several will wear the A of alternate. Head coach Rick Bowness hopes this move encourages more players to step up and lead.
We're a family here, and that's what I'm trying to tell them. We're all in this fight together every day. We're a family, and we all have to be held accountable. We have to support each other. We have to help each other. We have to push each other, and that's what we're trying to establish.
Blake Wheeler found out a few days ago that he will no longer be the Jets team captain. He says it took him some time to process that information, but Wheeler says he's now dealt with it.
I don't need a letter on my jersey. You know, I think there was a time in my career where that validation was important to me. I don't need that anymore. You know, I'm really looking forward to watching, you know, a lot of the guys that I've had a privilege watching kind of grow up, step into sort of an expanded role. And, you know, if you think that because of this, I'm just going to fade into the back and not be a leader on this team, you know, you're sorely mistaken.
Wheeler says he appreciates the opportunities he's been given by the Jets. Don't forget to subscribe to our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Your latest headlines are all there, so is this newscast. So if you missed something or you want to see it again, you can find it there. After the break, waiting to view the Queen's coffin. Who got to skip the line today, the long line, and which superstar is patiently waiting in it? You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. That extraordinary lineup in London right along the River Thames continues tonight. A queue of mourners stretching for kilometers, waiting to file past the Queen's coffin. At the same time, Canadians began arriving for Monday's funeral today. CBC's Chris Brown reports.
Officers! The world is converging on London for the Queen's funeral, including soldiers from Canada and Commonwealth countries. The New Zealanders performed a haka, a ceremonial Maori dance, for the Prince and Princess of Wales at a military training centre near the city. 80 Canadian soldiers are here, representing units the Queen had a special connection to. And they're rehearsing through the night for their roles.
When we turned on to the main stretch and we saw the flags and you saw the palace at the other end, I mean, it got very real for everybody.
She was our queen, she was our sovereign, and for us to lead her to her final resting place, it means so much, and it's such an honor to be here.
Meanwhile, the huge crowds of people hoping to pay their respects to the Queen before the funeral continues to grow. This line, the queue of all queues, continues to move tens of thousands of people through the city to Westminster Hall and ultimately past the Queen's coffin. Entry to the line was temporarily halted earlier today but is now reopened, with organizers telling mourners they can expect waits of up to 24 hours. While some VIPs, such as former UK Prime Minister Theresa May, were allowed to skip the line, other famous Britons, such as soccer star David Beckham, waited with everyone else.
Everyone feels the same, and that's why we all queued up today, because I think it's the right thing to do.
King Charles, meanwhile, visited Wales, where someone gave him a pen as a joke, just in case, they said.
Oh, God, I hate it.
A reference to his much publicized frustrations with the official pens that didn't work. He addressed the Parliament in Welsh, a language he learned before his investiture as a Prince of Wales in 1969.
I take up my new duties with immense gratitude for the privilege of having been able to serve as Prince of Wales.
By day's end, Charles and his siblings had returned to London for a more somber duty, another vigil at the Queen's side. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Here in Manitoba, non-essential government offices will be closed Monday because of the Queen's funeral. So will universities. But schools and daycares will be open Monday. The closures are different from province to province, and they are complicating what's already a strange time for many Canadian families. CBC's Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains.
At least one large school board in Ontario thinks the best way to commemorate the Queen's funeral is to not commemorate it at all. In a memo obtained by CBC News, the York Region District School Board wrote, "We request that school staff please refrain from developing tributes or activities to memorialize the death of the Queen. For some, the death of the Queen is very triggering." The concern is for students whose families may have been affected by British colonialism.
Start with where our students are. And all the memo did is said to center our students in the moment and plan accordingly for what they need.
But that did not sit well with the province's Minister of Education. In a statement to CBC News, Stephen Lecce wrote, "We have made clear our direction that all schools are to recognize the profound impact of Queen Elizabeth II's lifelong and unwavering devotion to public service. I have directed this board to implement the province's expectation."
In other parts of Canada, the impact of the Queen's funeral is being felt in other ways, especially for parents. Educators in the prairies were encouraged, though not mandated, to acknowledge the event. But BC and the Maritimes gave the kids a day off.
The problem is not too many parents will get a day off themselves.
It means that I have to take the day off of work. And I'm a therapist, and so my clients won't be able to see me that day so that I can stay home with my son. For people who don't make a lot of money, for parents who don't make a lot of money, I can't even imagine what it would be like for them. It's a huge amount of stress.
Another public holiday in September as families try to get back to a routine after years of pandemic disruptions.
Parents are extremely concerned about learning loss. Learning loss is a real issue this year, more than any other year.
As complex discussions about how to acknowledge the Queen's legacy continue even on the very last part of her journey. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Ukraine is once again accusing Russia of war crimes. Bodies have been unearthed at a mass burial site in Izum. That's an area that Russia held until just last week. Julia Chapman has the story.
Wooden crosses were found interspersed between the trees. One grave reportedly held multiple bodies of Ukrainian soldiers, but most of those buried in the forest are understood to have been civilians. It's believed that many died in shelling, others due to a lack of access to health care. But the governor of the Kharkiv region says some were found with their hands tied behind their backs, suggesting deliberate killings. International experts have already been brought in to help document potential war crimes. Russia has denied targeting civilians in this war, but when its forces retreated from Bucha, a suburb of Kyiv, widespread allegations of deliberate civilian killings were made by surviving residents, and at least 458 bodies were found there. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky compared the discovery in Izum to Bucha, saying Russia leaves death behind everywhere. He vowed that Russia would be held accountable. The United Nations says it will send a monitoring group to Izum in the near future to examine the site. Izium's residents spent months living under Russian control, their town a key logistical hub for Moscow's troops. Around 80% of the city has been destroyed, and only around a quarter of its pre-invasion population remains. Ukraine recaptured Izium earlier this week in its counteroffensive in the Kharkiv region. Meanwhile, Russia has accused Ukraine of a series of targeted attacks on Friday. At least 4 Moscow-installed officials in different areas of occupied territory were killed. One died when an administrative building was attacked in the city of Kherson. Another 2 were killed in an explosion at their office in Luhansk. And one more died alongside his wife in their garage in Berdyansk in circumstances that still remain unclear. Ukraine has denied responsibility for these deaths. Julia Chapman for CBC News, Kyiv.
There are no Russian films at the Toronto International Film Festival this year. State-sponsored movies have been banned as the war in Ukraine continues. But there is one Ukrainian filmmaker who is screening at the festival, and he finished his feature in the midst of the invasion of his country. CBC's Lisa Jing has his story.
In Antonio Lukic's second feature, twin brothers go on a road trip from Ukraine to Luxembourg to visit their estranged father who is dying.
It is an amazing miracle for us that we finished film and now have opportunity to show it.
During post-production, Russia invaded Ukraine. The crew scrambled, recovering material from hard drives and flash drives scattered across the city. That's as they scattered, staying to fight or fleeing the country. Lukic brought his family west, then to Europe. He returned to Kiev alone a month later, determined to see the project through.
That sync film literally gave us hope for life. So we felt that it's our mission to finish it, since we've been making it for 3 years, and know the potential of the film, that it could be the great Ukrainian representative at festivals.
Кажуть, родители ответственны за своих детей.
Luxembourg is inspired by Lukic's relationship with his own late father, whom he barely knew. And it's timely as thousands of Ukrainian men are fighting in the war.
It's a film about absent parents, and war ruins not only buildings, war ruins families as well. And we had this generation of absent fathers during, after the Second World War. In the 90s was a generation of absent fathers, and now we will be faced with a huge generation of absent parents, which is really sad.
So in early September, Lukic and his team used the world premiere of the film at the Venice Film Festival to raise awareness about the impact of war. It premiered in North America at TIFF this week.
I'm a privileged one, I'm sitting in a normal clothes, wearing a suit, since a lot of my friends and people I know now not have such ability to appear in such beautiful places.
And now that the rest of the world has seen it, Lukic hopes he can eventually bring the film to audiences back home. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Attention bird lovers, it is migration season. CBC weather specialist Fiona Odlum looks at that and then brings us our Manitoba forecast after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. So we were saying earlier in the program that, earlier in the day really, that it's been feeling a lot like fall.
It really is.
It really has. You saw some people in toques.
I did see people in toques. And if I see people in toques, it means that, the birds are thinking, I gotta get out of here. So earlier today, I popped over to Assiniboine Park to find out some tips on making migration season safe for all our feathered friends. I'm here with Ashley Westfall, researcher and conservation with Assiniboine Park Zoo. And, this park is home to a lot of birds. Who's calling the park home these days?
So we have a variety of species of birds that use the park throughout the year. So right now you can see behind us, we still have some waterfowl that are kicking around, but we have a lot of different birds that nest within the park, a lot of species of warblers, of sparrows, a whole variety of species really. It's a pretty diverse area that we have here.
Now this time of year is really critical for birds. They've been in the forest and now they're coming into an urban setting. How are you making the park safe for birds?
Yeah, so migration is a very exciting, very special, but also very sensitive time of year for a lot of species of birds. They're moving through, they're moving down to their wintering grounds. So what we do here at the park and zoo is we try and make this as safe a space as we can while they're either moving through or maybe stopping in to spend the winter in the area. We mitigate a lot of our windows here at the zoo. So windows, for a lot of birds, they can have a lot of challenges seeing them. They might see reflections of vegetation and think it's just more habitat, or maybe they can't see it, they think it's just a space they can move through, and they potentially collide with windows and they can injure or potentially die from collisions. So what we do here at the park and zoo is we actually apply mitigation to a lot of our windows to make these safe spaces where they're able to see the windows a lot more clearly and avoid colliding with them, so they can continue using the space safely.
So now, when you say mitigation, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so by mitigation, what I mean is taking steps to make these areas safer. So a big thing that we've done in different areas of the park and zoo is we've applied different things, like for instance, dots. So you can put these special little window dots on windows, which we have done at the Qualico Family Center patio, as well as a few different areas within the zoo itself. There are different types of decals that you can put on windows, different types of films. All of these different things make windows more visible to birds, so they mitigate that risk that a bird won't see it when they're moving through the space.
So now, I'm a homeowner. What can I do at my house to make things safer?
So there's a lot of really fun things available out there for homeowners to do to their own windows at home. One of the easiest things that we tell people, you can just let your windows be dirty. So
excellent. Yeah. I like that plan.
Yeah. So by letting them stay a little dusty, stay a little dirty, it just makes them that much more visible to birds that are flying through. You can also apply dots like we have done here at the zoo. So we do have dots available in our gift shop. You can also purchase them online. Window markers, temporary chalk markers are a really great, fun way to mitigate your windows, especially if you have kids. You can draw things on the windows, make them this beautiful piece of art that's also really visible for birds. Other things, turning off your lights at night, moving plants away from windows, just to, again, the key is making those windows as visible as we can for birds, as well as making those spaces as unappealing for birds as possible. We don't want them moving towards your plants that are on the other side of that window. So these are different things we can all do to make them safer.
Well, thanks so much for all your time. This has been so fascinating. Everyone keep your eye to the sky. It's migration season. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Leave your windows dirty.
Just leave them dirty.
Just leave them dirty, right? Why can't we give handy tips like that every night on the news?
Do nothing. Save the birds.
Okay. Good night.
There we go.
There
Problem
we go.
solved.
We should probably talk about weather.
Yes, let's talk about the weather. Now, this is a person, I want to show you a photo, and their windows are definitely clean. This was sent to us by Brock, and he lives in the southern part of Winnipeg, and he spotted these beautiful sandhill cranes flying over his backyard. Amazing. Thank you so much, Brock, for sharing those with us. Okay, we are going to take a look at our current temperatures. Right now in Selkirk, we're sitting at 13 degrees. That's the same in Steinbach, and Eli, 14 in Morris. As we expand out, we see a pretty warm 20 degrees in Barons River, and 12 in Melita, and 11 in Brandon and Red Lake. Further north we go. It's nice and toasty in Norway House and Thompson and Gillum at 20 degrees, 11 degrees currently in Churchill. Well, we have a rainfall warning, and this is significant. This rain is going to be bringing 60 to 100 millimeters of rain. This is Western Ontario, so if you are heading towards the cottage country zone, anticipate a very soggy Friday night into Saturday, and we could expect some flooding with this system as well. It's all because of this low that's been pushing up from the States. You see how it's really in southern Manitoba and over into Western Ontario. It starts to move north. It starts to move rather slowly. By the time we get into Saturday and Sunday, it starts to become a little bit more widespread, starting to reach up towards Churchill. Let's look at some of those projected numbers. Barons River, you look like one of the bullseye zones with 15 millimeters of rain on the way through till Monday. As we look into southern Manitoba, it really starts to ease up. We've had the bulk of our rain today, but really it's into that Ontario zone that is going to be our big problem. Well, tonight those showers will be an issue through Kenora and Dryden, and temperatures actually just a little bit warmer than seasonal. We're looking for 11 degrees tonight and showers continuing in Pinawa and Gimli. And that will continue to be an issue as well into Brandon and Dauphin. But Dauphin, you could see a little bit of fog tonight. And fog was certainly a problem this morning in Churchill. It was reaching into the afternoon, a partly cloudy sky for you, but then we're going to be looking for that fog returning tomorrow morning. Hopefully it burns off a lot faster than it did today. Fog will also be an issue in Gillam. We're going to see fog as well as a problem in the Dauphin region tomorrow. And then it will start to transition to see some peaks of sunshine. You're really on the outer edges of that system that it's going to be right over Steinbach and Barons River. And we're going to be seeing very intense rain into this zone here. So if you are heading out towards Kenora, be prepared for heavy, heavy rain. Janet?
Thanks, Fiona. Still ahead, we're going to check out King Corn Maze near Notre-Dame-de-Lourdes, meet the wonderful people behind it, and find out why they decided to start this thing after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. I heard a few people say today that it felt like fall out there. For many people, fall is their favorite time of year. It's time you can dig out cozy sweaters and clothing. It is also corn maze season. King Corn Maze near Notre-Dame-de-Lourdes was the brainchild of these three siblings, Justin, Yannick, and Théa Grenier. Hello, Grenier.
Good, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys? Are you tired? This must be a lot of work.
I would say it's a lot of work, but in the end, it's so rewarding to see people have a great time.
That is excellent. Now, I hear that this all started as an idea over a dinner conversation 5 or so years ago. You wanted to bring people to your community. Tell me more about that, Janique.
Yeah, so it was really an idea at supper that came across on what we can do as youth to bring families to our tiny community. And the idea that came was corn maze, and we started off really small and didn't really know what to expect. And I think we're pretty proud of what we've put for the past 5 years.
How is business going?
It's going good. This year we had to open a little bit later due to delays. We put up a nice big barn this summer, so we opened a little later than expected. Usually open that first week of August, but this is our second weekend open this year, and our first weekend went great.
I'm seeing a picture now of somebody sliding down from a big pile of straw bales. Tell me about the other things you have besides corn mazes.
So beside our corn maze, we also have our bale slide, which would be that picture. We have human-sized hamster ball, where you can feel like a hamster and run around and race your friends. We also have tire play structure and mini golf as well. That is all included.
Amazing. And golf this year. Golf?
Yeah, we started kind of just a semi-trial run last year with a golf range, and this year with that barn addition, we've added a golf range. That's an added cost. It's $5 a pail for the rest of the season this year. We're just looking for a little bit of input, how we can improve on it and try to make it nice and cheap for everybody to give it a whirl.
Now, there are a lot of teenagers who don't necessarily get along all the time, and it can be difficult working with family. How are you guys doing? What has this done to your relationship?
It's a teamwork. It's definitely teamwork. We see lots of point of views every day. We're not the same people, and we have our ups and downs together, but in the end, we want to make the one outcome to create a corn maze to bring people to our community. And we've learned a lot about each other overall. And that's really nice. And we've learned patience, lots of patience.
Lots of patience. That'll serve you well. So, Taya, what do you want people to know about King Corn?
That it's not only a family-friendly activity. It's an activity for all ages, ranging from 2 to 92, we like to say. Anyone can have a good time.
And Justin, final word to you.
Yeah, we're kind of hoping to see a lot of new friendly faces. We have a lot of returning people that come out. We're looking to put up a haunted barn this year. So if you're looking to make a little cash on the weekends, send us an email.
Justin, Janique, and Taya Grenier of King Corn Maze and Notre Dame de Lourdes, thanks for your time today. Have fun this weekend.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yes, they are looking to hire people to be scary. We have great young people in our province, don't we? If you ever miss one of our interviews, want to see something again, remember our shows are on CBC Manitoba's YouTube page. Subscribe, we'll keep you up to date. Your daily lift and 7-day forecast are still ahead on CBC Winnipeg News.
Welcome back. We have a soggy Friday night and a really soggy long-range forecast. So tomorrow we're going to see some showers in the morning, wrapping up at around lunchtime, a daytime high of 17 degrees, a mix of sun and cloud on Sunday, and that's really where the good times end. We're going to be seeing consistent shower activity all throughout next week. And Janet, if you can believe it, this is the last weekend of summer.
I can believe it. I can totally believe it. It feels like it.
It really
But
feels
I'm willing to extend. Like you know, if that's something we could negotiate,
we'll push it
that would
back.
be fine. I've got a love story to tell you now, one for the ages. Everyone seems to have different memories of Queen Elizabeth, different things that twig with her. There's a couple originally from Manitoba who are giving thanks for her right now.
Well, and the beginning of the late monarch's reign also marked the beginning of their decades-long romance. Here is your daily lift.
Well, we were on the dance floor, and she's a very nice dancer and very attractive. And I think I wrote in my diary, wow, you know.
Well, I was rather watching all the time for this art that I was supposed to find, according to my sister was actually dating the young man that knew art, so that was our connection. Yeah, so I was quite excited, and I said I felt better now. I had been seasick the day before, the only day out of the 7 of the trip over that I was seasick, and I said I feel better now. I met Art White on the trip.
And together still. Thanks for being with us. Have a great weekend.
Night.